All right, welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
Today, we're going to be digging into cybersecurity,
Oh, yeah.
specifically vulnerability assessments.
It's a big one.
Now, we've got a great source for
Oh,
this.
yeah.
It's a piece by Rhino Cybersecurity,
Okay.
and they're
They're the pros.
they are the pros. So we're going to be drawing on their expertise to really break this down
Right.
for everyone,
Hmm.
No matter where you're at in your cybersecurity journey, you're going to get a lot out of this.
Absolutely.
So let's just jump right into it. When we say vulnerability assessment, what are we actually talking about?
Well, you can think of it this way, right? Every system, app, device, it's all code.
Mm-hmm.
And code can have flaws.
Code.
And a vulnerability assessment is a systematic search for those flaws, for those weaknesses that someone with, well, bad intentions could exploit.
So it's not just like running a virus scan.
It's a lot deeper than that. A virus scan's looking for known threats. A vulnerability assessment is looking for potential weaknesses, things that might be exploited,
Right.
even if there's no specific attack out there yet.
I see. So it's like being proactive.
Exactly. It's like a detective, looking for clues before a crime even happens.
Okay, that makes sense. But with all the software out there,
Right.
how can companies possibly keep up with all the potential vulnerabilities?
That's the thing, right? We're talking about potentially hundreds, thousands of vulnerabilities that organizations face every year.
Oh, wow.
Finding all of those manually, impossible. Like trying to find a needle in a digital haystack.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It'd be like
Right.
trying to check every single line of code in every app on every device. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's just not realistic.
So how DO companies actually DO these assessments?
Well, that's where you need those specialized tools and the real expertise. Rhino Cybersecurity, for example, they've got a really interesting approach.
Oh, okay.
They use industry standard scanning tools,
Right.
but then they also bring in ethical hackers for manual testing.
So it's kind of like a two-pronged approach.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having a high-tech security system, but also a trained guard dog protecting your home.
Okay, I like that. So you're not just relying on automation.
Right. Automated tools are great for finding those common vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
But they can miss things that a human eye, someone who's trained to think like an attacker, would catch.
Okay, so you need both. You need the tech and the human element.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm really starting to see why this is so important. So let's break down how this actually works in practice, shall we? Rhino lays out this 5-step process in their material here.
Okay.
What's that first step?
So step 1 is something called program scoping and preparation. And this is where you figure out exactly what you need to assess,
Okay.
what systems are most critical, what data needs the highest level of protection. It's like understanding the scope of your digital house before you start looking for those weak points.
So it's almost like taking inventory.
Yeah, you need to know what you're looking for before you can start looking for vulnerabilities.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've scoped things out. Now what?
Well, now comes the real action. Step 2 is vulnerability testing.
Okay.
This is where they're using that combination of automated scans and manual testing. Those automated tools, they act like digital bloodhounds, sniffing out those potential security holes in your system.
Right.
And then the ethical hackers go deeper, trying to exploit those vulnerabilities, just like a real attacker would.
So these ethical hackers, they're kind of like the good guys who know how to think like the bad guys.
Exactly. They use that knowledge to find the vulnerabilities before the real bad guys do. And that gives you a much more realistic view of your security, where you actually stand.
That makes a lot of sense. But finding those vulnerabilities is only half the battle, right? What happens once you've identified them?
Well, that's where step 3 comes in, prioritization. Not all vulnerabilities are created equal. Some are more critical than others. Some are easier to exploit than others.
Right.
So they rank them based on risk, kind of like a triage system in a hospital.
I see.
The most critical issues get addressed first.
So it's not just about finding the vulnerabilities. It's about understanding which ones pose the biggest threat.
Exactly. And that's where the expertise of the ethical hackers, it comes in again, because they can really help you understand what's the real world impact of each vulnerability.
Right.
And help you prioritize your efforts.
Okay, so now we've identified the vulnerabilities, we've prioritized them. What's next?
Okay, step 4 is all about reporting. They create detailed reports outlining all the findings, but this isn't just a list of problems.
Okay.
It includes recommendations for fixing them and how to mitigate those risks even before those fixes are in place.
Oh, Okay, so it's actionable. It's not just, pointing out problems.
Exactly, exactly. It's like you've got this personalized security blueprint with clear instructions on how to secure your digital fortress.
I like that. But, technology is constantly changing.
Always.
So how do you keep up with new threats, new vulnerabilities?
Well, that's where the final step comes in. Continuous improvement. Vulnerability assessments, they're not a one and done thing.
Right.
Technology evolves, new threats emerge. Those attackers are constantly finding new ways to exploit those weaknesses.
That sounds exhausting.
So they recommend those regular assessments to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's like kind of a never-ending game of cat and mouse?
In a way, yeah, but it's a game that we need to play to keep our data and our systems secure.
Okay, so we've got a good kind of big picture understanding of what a vulnerability assessment is and how it works. But are there different types of assessments?
Great question. And the answer is yes. There are several different types of vulnerability assessments, each focusing on a different area of your digital infrastructure.
Okay.
You've got network-based scams, which are like checking the perimeter security of your property, making sure the network itself is protected.
Right. And then those host-based scans, which are like going into each room, checking those individual devices and systems connected to the network.
Exactly. And then you've got application scans. Those focus on the software we use every day, making sure the apps themselves aren't hiding those security flaws.
Right, because those apps, we use those all the time.
Yeah.
And then what about database scans? That seems pretty important with all the sensitive data that companies, and just individuals too, are storing.
You're absolutely right. Database scans are like making sure those most valuable possessions are kept in a secure safe.
Okay, so it's not just about protecting the network, it's protecting everything connected to it, everything running on it.
It's the whole ecosystem, the whole digital world.
Okay, wow, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We defined what vulnerability assessments are, explored, Rhino's unique approach, broke down their whole 5-step process, even touched on the different types of assessments. But how does this all play out in the real world? Like, are these assessments actually making a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Rhino, they've got some fantastic case studies that show the real impact.
Oh, great.
They've worked with businesses of all sizes, from small startups to those large corporations.
Wow.
And the results have been, really impressive.
So it's not just theory. It's actually working.
It's making a real difference in the real world. And that's what's exciting about this field,
Yeah.
By identifying and addressing these vulnerabilities, we're not just protecting businesses, we're creating a safer digital world for everyone.
Like, it's good for all of us.
Exactly. It makes a difference.
Okay, this is, wow, really eye-opening. I'm already starting to think differently about my own security practices just from this conversation.
That's great to hear. And speaking of personal security practices, what's standing out to you so far in terms of how this relates to your own digital life?
Well, I'm definitely thinking a lot more about the apps that I use and the data I share. Like, how do I even know if the apps that I'm using are secure? I just assume that they are. But
It is such a good question.
Yeah.
And one that we should definitely explore further.
All right, well, let's shift gears a bit for the next part of our conversation.
Okay.
And explore some practical things that you, our listener, can do to actually enhance your own cybersecurity.
Sounds like a plan. We'll delve into those practical steps and resources in the next part of our deep dive.
Right.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Okay, so we've spent some time understanding vulnerability assessments for organizations,
Right.
big companies, all that.
Oh.
But now I want to bring it a little closer to home
Okay.
because, it's not just companies that need to worry about this stuff.
Right.
We all have our own digital lives to protect. Our devices, our accounts, our data.
Absolutely. We're all targets at the end of the day.
And it seems like the same principles apply, right?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the things that we talked about for organizations, they have parallels in our personal lives.
Oh, okay, cool. So, like, when we talk about program scoping and preparation for a company, that's basically like taking stock of your digital stuff, right?
Exactly. Taking inventory, figuring out what you have online, where your data is stored, all those accounts you've got.
All those accounts. Oh, man. Just thinking about all those accounts makes me a little anxious.
Right.
It's overwhelming.
So I guess step one for our own little personal vulnerability assessment is just making a list of everything we need to protect.
Exactly. And once you have that list, you can start thinking about how well protected everything is.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we protect all that stuff?
Well, we've got to start with the basics.
Okay.
Passwords.
Ugh, passwords.
I know. It's like every security conversation starts with passwords,
Right.
but it's because they're so important. You've got to have strong, unique passwords for every single account. No reusing passwords. Okay, okay, I get it. But how am I supposed to remember all those passwords?
That's where a password manager comes in. Really, it's essential these days.
Okay, tell me more about that. What is it and what does it do?
So it's basically like a digital vault that stores all your passwords securely,
Mm-hmm.
and it can help you generate strong, unique passwords for each of your accounts, too.
Oh, okay. So I don't have to think them up myself.
Nope. It does it all for you.
So then I just need to remember one password.
Exactly. The one to unlock the vault. Much easier than remembering dozens of different complex passwords.
And way safer than using the same password for everything.
Oh, absolutely. Or writing them down on sticky notes.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Definitely not.
Okay, so strong passwords, password managers, those are like the locks on our digital doors.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the alarm system, the security cameras?
Well, one of the best alarm systems you can have is two-factor authentication, or 2FA.
Okay, I've heard of that, but
It basically adds an extra layer of security to your accounts. So even if somebody manages to steal your password, they can't get in without that second factor, like a code sent to your phone.
right, I've seen that.
Yeah. It can be a little bit of a hassle sometimes getting those codes,
Yeah, I was going to say that.
but it's a small price to pay for that added security.
Okay, I'll take a little hassle for more security.
And there are different ways to do it now, some more seamless than others.
Okay, good to know. So we've got passwords, two-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else we can do to really, fortify our digital homes?
Well, this is where it gets tricky.
Oh.
Because we need to talk about social engineering.
Social engineering.
Yeah, basically, it's the art of manipulating people
Okay.
into revealing confidential information or giving access to their systems.
So it's not about hacking directly into something, it's about tricking people.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's sneaky.
It can be really effective. Think about those phishing emails you get, the ones that try to trick you into clicking a bad link or giving up your login credentials.
Oh yeah, those are everywhere.
They are, and they're getting more sophisticated all the time.
Okay, so how do we protect ourselves from that?
Mm-hmm.
From being socially engineered?
Well, awareness is a big part of it. Being skeptical, being cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Don't click on any link that looks even a little suspicious. Really scrutinize those emails that are asking for personal information. If something feels off, it probably is.
Trust your gut.
Exactly. And, don't be afraid to report suspicious activity
Right.
to the company, to the authorities. Like, we all got to work together to fight this stuff.
It's like a community effort.
It really is, yeah.
Okay, so being vigilant about those phishing scams and all that.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, this is where the vulnerability testing part comes into our own devices,
Okay.
keeping your software up to date.
Oh, you mean those update notifications that are constantly popping up?
Those, I know they can be annoying.
They are.
But they're so important. They often include security patches, fixes for known vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Ignoring those updates, it's like leaving your front door unlocked, even though you know there are burglars in the neighborhood.
Okay, you've convinced me. I will be more diligent about those updates from now on.
Good.
But what about antivirus software? And those, anti-malware programs? Are those still a thing? Do we need those?
Absolutely. Those are still crucial.
Okay.
They're like your digital immune system, always working in the background to protect you.
Okay.
And just like with vulnerability assessments, it's important to choose reputable, trustworthy antivirus and anti-malware software.
So not just, the free version or whatever.
You get what you pay for. Investing in that good security software it's really worth it.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. So we've got passwords, two-factor authentication, watching out for social engineering, keeping software updated, good antivirus software.
Uh-huh.
Anything else?
Well, there's that last element of a vulnerability assessment that we talked about.
Oh, right. Continuous improvement.
Exactly. That applies to us, too. Staying informed, staying vigilant, always learning about the latest threats.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Nope. You got to be proactive. It's like, regularly checking your home security system, making sure everything's up to date.
Right. Okay, I can do that. I mean, it's a lot to think about.
It is, but it's so important. The more you know about those threats, the better you can protect yourself.
I totally agree. It's amazing to me how much this stuff applies to us, just regular people.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we were talking about, organizations and companies.
Yeah, it's all connected.
And speaking of connected, it's not just about our own devices,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, think about all the organizations we interact with every
It's
day.
exactly. Your bank, your doctor's office, your favorite online
Well,
stores.
all those places have my information.
They do. And they have a responsibility to protect it.
So they should be doing these vulnerability assessments too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They should be taking those steps to secure their systems.
So maybe when I'm choosing a bank or a doctor, I should be thinking about their cybersecurity practices.
It's a great point. It's something to consider, for sure. And it's something we can actually talk more about in the next part of our conversation.
Okay, this is really making me think about the bigger picture here
Yeah, it's not just about our own little bubble. It's about the whole ecosystem.
and how it all connects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how we can all work together to make it safer.
Right, well, I am eager to learn more about that bigger picture.
Me too. We'll explore that in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Oh,
Okay, so we've gone deep on vulnerability assessments, how they work, what they mean for us, for companies.
yeah.
But I'm curious, what's next? Technology's always evolving.
Always changing.
So what's on the horizon? What's coming down the pipeline for cybersecurity and for these assessments?
Well, I think it's safe to say that the digital world's only getting more complex, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that means more challenges for cybersecurity professionals, more things to think about, more to protect.
Right, it's almost like an arms race.
It is.
The good guys versus the bad guys, constantly trying to outsmart each other.
Exactly. And one of the big game changers in this arms race is AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah, AI is everywhere these days.
It is.
It's in our phones. I feel like AI is writing half the content on the internet these days.
I know, right?
But how does AI actually impact cybersecurity?
Well, it can be a powerful tool for both sides, really.
Right.
For attackers, it can make those attacks much more efficient, much harder to defend against.
Okay, how so?
Well, imagine a system that can automatically scan for vulnerabilities, exploit them, spread malware, all at incredibly high speed.
Oh, that's a little scary.
It is. It's like giving those cyber criminals a supercharged weapon.
Yeah, not good.
But the good news is that AI can also be used to boost our defenses, right?
Okay, how so?
So you can have these AI-powered security systems that analyze tons of data, looking for patterns, anomalies that could indicate an attack is happening or about to happen.
So it's like kind of predicting what the attackers are going to do.
Yeah, in a way, it's trying to anticipate those threats.
Okay, so it's like having an army of digital bodyguards constantly watching our systems, learning, getting better.
Exactly. AI can really help us stay ahead of the curve, be more proactive about security.
Okay, so that's AI.
Uh-huh.
What else? What other emerging trends are shaping the future of all this?
Well, another big one is the Internet of Things, or IoT, as it's called.
Oh, yeah, the IoT.
Right.
It seems like everything is connected to the internet these days.
I know, right? Your fridge, your thermostat, your car, everything.
Everything is smart these days.
Exactly, but all that connectivity creates more potential entry points for attacks.
So it's like more doors to lock.
Yeah, it's a much bigger attack surface.
Okay, so it's not just about securing our computers and phones anymore.
No, it's about securing everything around us, all these devices, all these systems that are now interconnected.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but that's just the nature of cybersecurity, right? It's
Yeah.
always changing, and we have to keep learning, keep adapting.
Okay, so AI, IoT, anything else coming down the pipeline that we need to be ready for?
Well, there's one more that's, kind of looming on the horizon, quantum computing.
Quantum computing.
Yeah.
That sounds, is that even real? Or is that science fiction?
It's real, it's coming, and it has the potential to, really shake things up, especially in cybersecurity.
Okay, tell me more. How does quantum computing affect all this?
Well, think about it this way. Quantum computers, they're way more powerful than the computers we use today.
Yeah.
And they could potentially break the encryption that we rely on to protect our data.
So all our passwords, financial transactions, everything, all vulnerable.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
But the good news is the cybersecurity folks are working on it. They're developing quantum-resistant encryption.
So they're already ahead of it.
Trying to be, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
It seems like this is never ending.
It is. It's this constant evolution, adaptation, trying to stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
And the bad guys are using the same technology to try to stay ahead of the good guys.
Exactly. It's a real challenge. But here's the thing. With all the technology, all the advancements, the human element is still the most important.
You mean like the social engineering stuff?
Yeah, that, but also just like General awareness, being smart about what we click on, what information we share.
Right. So it's not just about the tech, it's about the people using the tech.
Exactly. We all have a role to play in making the digital world safer.
This has been a fantastic deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's been great talking about all this.
It really has. So, for everyone listening, remember, cybersecurity, it's a journey, not a destination.
It's ongoing. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of vulnerability assessments and cybersecurity. Until next time, stay vigilant and keep learning.